Hey there, viewers. Some stories are hard to believe until they surface from the one person no one expected to hear from again. Reports are surfacing that Kim Porter has returned in a way that's left even investigators rattled. And the message she delivered about Diddy? It's terrifying. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The package marked 2018. I work nights at the Bronx Federal Evidence Intake Center. People assume it's more exciting than it is, like we're sitting on top of crates full of drugs and weapons and secret files or whatever, but it's really just paperwork. Endless paperwork. Chain of custody forms, digital scans, barcode tracking, freezer checks. If the tape says NY Fed hold on the box, we store it. Doesn't matter what's inside, doesn't matter who it belonged to. I'm not supposed to open anything unless it's leaking or on fire. I'd been in the intake room for 6 hours already that night, just me and the dull green hum of the monitor screens, sorting case material from a backlog dump we got out of Philadelphia. Most of it was old, burnt-out hard drives, evidence bags half melted in fire, water-damaged DVDs. I had just finished logging a batch of labeled discs, 2011 gang trial stuff, when I heard the buzz at the side dock, delivery, which was weird because we don't get handoffs at night, not after 7 p.m. I checked the wall cam. The guy standing outside the gate wore a faded Homeland Security patch and a hooded windbreaker. He didn't say anything through the intercom, just held the package up to the glass and pointed at it like it mattered. The clipboard in his other hand had a barcode and a signed clearance ticket. I buzzed him in. When he walked through the threshold, I felt it. Something about the air changed, like the air hum of the building got quieter. He didn't look at me, just slid the package onto the counter, initialed the line, and said, "File this under internal archive, legacy code, do not digitize." Then he left. No small talk, no name. And the badge he used to sign in? When I typed the number into the database, it pinged red. Inactive, flagged, discharged in 2019. The package wasn't large, just a brown box about the size of a shoebox, sealed with that extra weight black tape the government uses when it doesn't want things reopened. Across the top in faded Sharpie, KP Internal, 2018. Do not digitize, no origin code, no shipping label, no chain of custody tag. That's not supposed to happen. Everything we receive has to be scanned into the federal object system. It gets a barcode, a transfer number, a timestamp, a signature trail. This thing had none of that. But when I tried to scan the box, my terminal froze, and then it shut itself off. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the dark screen for a second. It flickered once, then rebooted, but only to a command window. A prompt box, plain text. Enter clearance tier. I'd never seen that screen before. We don't have clearance tiers in intake. I typed in my badge ID anyway just to see. The screen blinked, then displayed one word. Denied. That should have been the end of it. I should have filed a report, marked the package as chain of custody unverified, and sent it to supervisor review. But something about it felt personal. Not to me, but to someone. Like it wasn't just evidence, it was a message that someone wanted to make sure landed in the right hands. And maybe those hands were mine, even if I didn't know why. I cut the tape open with my utility knife. Inside was a thick layer of gray foam, and nested within it, a cracked handheld cassette recorder, those little ones they used for interviews back in the early 2000s. A mini-tape labeled playback, one statement. KP. A single photograph. The photo nearly stopped my heart. It was Kim Porter, smiling, standing outside what looked like a beach house, her hair pulled back, holding a cup in her hand. The date was scrawled on the bottom corner in red ink. November 16, 2018. The day before they found her dead. I wasn't some huge celeb chaser, but everyone knew about her death. Pneumonia, the report said. She was young, healthy, The headlines came and went, but there were always whispers online that she knew something, that she kept journals, that she had dirt on. I didn't really believe in all that. I don't believe in ghosts either. But when I put the mini-tape into the recorder and hit play, I swear I heard one. At first, just static, then a low crackle, then the voice. I was not sick, I was silenced. It was her, or someone who sounded like her. The voice was calm, steady. There was a pause after that sentence, like she expected a reaction. I don't care what they do with my name, but they cannot own my memory, not all of it. Another pause. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't finish what I was trying to do. It means they got to me before the files were sent. The lights above me flickered once, just a quick buzz and dim. I turned toward the ceiling like an idiot. What was I expecting, a shadow? The recorder made a clicking sound, then stopped. Tape jam. I hit rewind. Nothing happened. I took the tape out. The wheels were still. I tapped it. No movement. It was blank, or corrupted either way. The rest of it was gone. But as soon as I looked back at my computer, the terminal screen changed again. It wasn't just a command window anymore. It had rebooted itself to a private server directory I had never accessed before. Directory. Operation Legacy. Subfolders started appearing one by one, like someone else was typing them in real time. Kim_P, witness_type, _C, recovered, playback _1. Hadn't touched the keyboard. My mouth felt dry. I don't scare easy. But something about that name, Operation Legacy, pitched at the back of my brain. I clicked the folder. The screen didn't show any files, just a single line. Do you remember what she saw? That's when the cassette player started again. I hadn't pressed anything. The tape turned. The speaker crackled. Her voice came back, softer this time, almost like a whisper directly behind me. Don't let him file this away, not again. I turned. No one was there. I looked at the photograph again. There was something behind her in the image I hadn't noticed. A shadow, maybe. No clear shape, but something too tall to be a tree. It was blurred, almost like it had moved just before the camera clicked. I checked the recorder's tape one more time. Now the label on it looked slightly different. The ink bled at the edges, like it was freshly written, and the label didn't say just Playback 1 anymore. It had something new underneath. Session 8, Rehearsal Memory Incomplete. I blinked. I knew I hadn't seen that before. When I looked back at my terminal, the screen had gone dark again. No folders, no command window, just a blinking cursor in the top left corner. And it was typing. I wasn't touching anything. She's not gone, she's just waiting. The cursor blinked twice. Don't forget her. Then everything shut down. I just sat there, surrounded by the quiet buzz of the fluorescent lights, the faint smell of dust and rubber insulation from the box, and the faintest chill I couldn't explain. I felt like I'd been part of something, an echo, maybe, a message someone tried to bury and failed. I picked up the sketch Kim was holding in the photograph, or what I thought was just a photo. Now I could see it was actually a scan of a Polaroid, taped over a scan of a page. There were pencil lines behind her hand. She was holding a drawing. Empty, except for one seat in the front row. A woman, back turned, drawing the scene, and something written in the margin of the photo, almost too light to read. You archived me once. Don't file me again. Chapter 2. Operation Legacy was a lie. I was on the city payroll, but technically, I didn't work for anyone. That's the thing about subcontracting. You're always inside someone else's job, never quite part of the room. They bring you in when something's broken in a way they don't want to admit, and then they disappear behind glass while you try to make it whole again. The call came around 3 a.m. A voice on the line, clipped, male, formal, said he was with internal oversight and that I'd been cleared for a same-night dispatch to the Fort Greene Annex. They didn't say what division, what agency, or what kind of media it was. Just that I was to bring my restoration rig, keep my gloves on, and sign the NDA in the elevator. The Annex isn't the kind of place that shows up on GPS. You buzz into a concrete loading bay, take a metal stairwell 3 levels down, and arrive in a hallway lit like a morgue fridge, fluorescent tubes humming overhead. Every corner just a little too cold. The woman who met me didn't give a name, just handed me a lanyard and a thick black folder marked classified. Audio record, restoration tier 4. We didn't talk. She led me into a sound-sealed chamber with lead-lined walls, a pressurized locking door, and a terminal already powered on. The file was there, loaded but not opened. She told me only this. It was found, not submitted. We don't know who had it last. I asked what I was listening for. She didn't answer, just said, "Restore what you can. Don't clean beyond signal floor, and no copying." She left, the door sealed behind her. The file was named playback_1_KP_session_843. Format: analog cassette digitized at low fidelity. The metadata showed the source media was recorded at 1:43 and 12 seconds 18 on November 15, 2018. That caught my attention. That was the day Kim Porter died. I pulled out my gloves, adjusted the filters, and began threading the waveform into the cleaning interface. First pass, static, uneven pitch, some minor dropouts. Second pass, clearer vocal tone, female speaker, late 30s vocal range, steady cadence. Then I heard her, Kim, or someone who sounded like her. I froze, mid. If this is playing, it means I didn't get the last copy out, they caught it. Or me. She sounded tired, not scared. Like someone who already knew what the ending was, just didn't know who'd be reading it. I said I would never let him keep those tapes, but they don't erase what you lived. Not even silence does that. I flagged the section, ran a noise reduction algorithm, and kept listening. I was in the red room, the original one, not the new mirrors, the one with no vents, no sound, just playback. He called it a cycle rehearsal. Said if you repeat a memory enough times it becomes fiction. That's what he liked. The part where we stopped believing ourselves. I blinked. Red room. Cycle rehearsal. That wasn't common lingo. I'd heard similar terms in the old 90s Hollywood abuse reports, but nothing ever verified. I kept scrubbing through the waveform. That's when I noticed something strange. Under Kim's voice, barely audible like a second radio signal bleeding through, there was another voice, deeper, male, delayed by exactly 1 second. I isolated the lower frequency, raised it by 12 dB, flattened the mids. That second voice whispered just 4 things, and I wrote them down exactly as they came. Red room. Nowhere. Ping sessions. The girl saw. It didn't match Kim's cadence. It didn't sound like it was meant to be part of the original recording, like someone had embedded it later, underneath. I checked the time code. 1:43 and 12 seconds. Primary voice, Kim Porter. And 43 and 13 seconds, secondary voice, unknown origin. I ran a forensic match. The system parsed the voice fingerprint, cross-checked it with DOJ suspect banks, public figure profiles, and digitized deposition logs. And the result came back with 91.8% certainty. Match found, Sean John Combs. I don't panic easy. I've heard audio from military coups, cartel murders, closed-door interrogations that never hit court. But this was something different. It wasn't violence. It was layered memory. Like someone had woven themselves into her voice after the fact. I reached for the phone on the desk. It was a direct internal line meant only for escalation during classified sessions. It rang once, then silence. No tone, no click, just dead air. I hung up, dialed again. This time, the line answered itself. Do not call out. Click. I sat perfectly still. I reloaded the file, just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. But now the waveform had changed. A new label appeared in the audio header. Session ID /8 dB+8, playback not completed. And beneath that, one final sentence. It wasn't from her. Don't let him bury me again. I hadn't written that. No, part of my software auto-generates subtitles or transcripts without being instructed to. That phrase wasn't in the metadata. It wasn't in the original file name, but there it was. Bold, underlined, flashing in time with the playhead. Don't let him bury me again. I tried pausing the file, nothing happened. I hit SC, backspace, F12, everything. The screen went black, then white, then showed a message typed in courier font. You're the first person to hear her since the tape died. Do you understand what that means? I backed away from the desk. My hands were sweating through the gloves. The cassette deck powered off by itself. The lights in the room buzzed louder, like they'd been turned up to drown something out. Then I noticed a detail I hadn't seen before. On the far side of the workstation was a wall-mount analog terminal. Looked dead. But now it lit up, flickering weakly. A line of old green text appeared. Session 843 rehearsal detected. Memory contamination. Dear, upgrade initiated. Witness technician. Name, Melvan D // Logged. I wasn't supposed to be part of anything. I restore sound. I clean ghosts out of signal paths. But suddenly I wasn't an observer anymore. I was a witness. That word chilled me. Not analyst, not technician. Witness. I looked back at the waveform one last time before pulling my gear to pack up. The file had renamed itself again. him_porter_rehearsal 8 me, not .mp3, not WAV. Memory. I hadn't been restoring an audio file. I had been listening to a memory. And it wasn't done playing yet. Chapter 3. The girls in the playback room. They don't let you sleep with the curtains open, even in a place like this. Some government-issued safe house with beige walls and plastic light switches. They remind you to keep everything drawn, just in case. Even though they say no one knows where I am, I still follow the rules. That's what got me here in the first place. Following the rules, even the unspoken ones. They call me a witness now. That's the label they gave me when the feds pulled me out of the city 2 years ago. But before that, I was just a girl. One of many. One of too many. The kind of girl you don't ask real questions to. You just bring her to the party, give her a room key, tell her where to sit, what to drink, when to laugh. They said I could have a fake name now. Something for the records. I picked Ava, not because it means anything, but because it's short, quiet, and doesn't sound like anyone I used to be. Ava doesn't get invited to penthouses or flown across the country for weekends she can't remember. Ava doesn't get silenced. This morning, they brought me something. 2 agents, both wearing the same blank suits, the same nervous eyes. They sat me down at the kitchen table with the blinds shut and the door bolted. Laid a small black monitor down in front of me, already queued up. One of them said, "This was recovered 2 nights ago. We want you to tell us if you recognize the voice or the references." I nodded without saying anything. They pressed play. It wasn't visual, just audio. Grainy, warped. The voice came through soft but sharp. I didn't need more than 3 words. It was Kim. I'd only met her a handful of times, but her voice was like sugar just starting to burn, smooth with something bitter underneath. Every girl at those events noticed her. She wasn't like the rest of us. She didn't laugh too hard or pretend she didn't see what was happening. She didn't perform. That's what made her dangerous. The tape skipped forward, glitched once, and then she said it. I was in the red room, not the new mirrors, the one with no vents, no sound, just playback. I had to close my eyes when I heard that, calmed because I remembered it too. They didn't call it the red room to us, not out loud, they said playback room. But we knew what it meant. There were mirrors on every wall. You couldn't see a door, you couldn't hear the hallway. Once you stepped inside, it was just you and your reflection. And the camera behind the glass. We weren't told to dance, or strip, or smile. We were told to rehearse. It'd say what had happened to us, but in the third person, or as if we were reading it off a script. The more you did it, the less real it felt. The less the room felt like a room and more like a stage where no one clapped. I only went in once. That was enough. They gave me something to take the edge off. I don't remember what I said. I just remember my own voice echoing back at me from the mirrors like it wasn't mine. The agents paused the recording, waiting for me to talk. I told them, yes, that was her voice. Yes, she'd been in one. Maybe the last one. Maybe the only one that mattered. I told them Kim had a sketchbook. Always did. She didn't like phones, didn't talk much, but she drew like she was recording something. The girls, the rooms, herself. Once I saw her sketch something strange on a cocktail napkin. A square room with nothing inside. No doors, no lights. Just a mirror on every wall. She labeled it in tiny scratched handwriting. Rehearsal 10. Memory proof. I remember asking her what it meant. She didn't answer, just folded it up and stuck it in her bra. One night, near the end, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before she died, I saw her arguing with someone outside the hotel garage. A man. He wasn't one of the handlers. He had a beard, glasses, a little camera bag. I thought he was press, or maybe a film guy, but the way she was talking to him, it wasn't friendly. She was warning him. He only caught one line as I walked past. If they find me dead, it won't be the flu, it'll be the footage. I never forgot that. They didn't ask me any more questions, just let the recording keep playing. Kim said something else. Even said if we repeat it long enough, we'll believe it didn't happen. That's what the mirrors are for, to watch yourself lie until the lie is easier than the truth. That's when I started to feel sick. They asked me if I remembered the layout of the playback room. Could I draw it? I said no at first, but they pushed a piece of paper in front of me anyway. Pencil, no time limit, just try. My hand hovered over the paper for a long time. Then I started to draw. Lines, walls, a single chair, no door. But something felt off. My hand was moving faster than I meant it to, like it wasn't waiting for me to catch up. I drew the mirrored panels one by one, the frame, the way the lights were embedded into the ceiling like glowing eyes, the floor, glass with a spiral pattern, faint but visible. I wasn't thinking anymore. I looked down when it was done. It wasn't my drawing. It was hers. The exact same layout I remembered from the napkin. The spiral. The phrase, D, bottom. Rehearsal 10, memory proof. I hadn't written it. I dropped the pencil. My hands were shaking. The agents looked at each other but said nothing. They collected the paper, slid it into a sleeve, and thanked me for my time. One of them paused at the door and said, "You did well." I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. After they left, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared into the mirror for a long time. It didn't feel like my reflection was moving at the same time anymore. Chapter 4. The Sketchbook in Locker 512. I was only supposed to be there for 3 days. That's what the reassignment memo said. Temporary transfer to Cold Archives Sector 2B. Clearance match pending. No context, no reason. Just a badge reprint and a key card that didn't work on my usual floor anymore. But by the time I got to the bottom of the freight elevator and saw the words Locker 512 glowing on the console, I knew exactly what this was. This was cleanup. They always send people like me when something doesn't belong on the official books, but can't be destroyed either. I don't ask why. I just document the metadata, reclassify the tags, and seal it under a new chain code. That's the job, and it's easier when you don't look too hard at what you're sealing. The room was freezing. Same as always, thick concrete walls, no windows, no sound except the soft wheeze of the vents pushing out cold, filtered air. The kind of place where evidence goes to be forgotten, not processed. Every locker had a name, a date, a numeric category. But Locker 512 just said, "Report. Custody transfer blocked." That wasn't a standard label. Transfer blocked means someone tried to move it but was stopped, probably by someone higher up, probably in 2018, judging by the original intake code. The override took 3 tries. When the locker finally popped open, the smell that hit me wasn't rot or mold or chemicals. It was something faint and dry, like old paper, like a book that had been waiting too long to be touched. Inside the foam crate was only one item, a sealed sketchbook, heavy. Bound in gray cloth, corners scuffed like it had been handled a lot, but not recently. A barcode was attached to the top corner, but it had been scratched through with a knife. Someone didn't want it scanned. I sat down at the intake table, pulled on gloves, and opened the first page. My heart slowed. It wasn't art, exactly. It was memory, pinned to paper with a hand that didn't shake. The lines were sharp, intentional. Every page captured a moment with the kind of clarity you don't fake. Kim Porter had drawn these herself. I didn't need a forensic analyst to tell me that. The first few pages were almost innocent. Kids at play. A poolside chair with a juice box left unattended. A little girl blowing bubbles. A boy in oversized sunglasses. The names weren't written, but the identities were clear. This was her life, her home. Then the pages began to change. One drawing showed a girl walking into a hallway lined with mirrors. Her hands were at her sides, no expression. Behind her, 2 adults in black stood by the door. Another page showed a room full of cameras. No people, just cameras and chairs. Then came the medical sketches. A tray with vials, a needle next to a silver spoon, a close-up of a wrist with a spiral drawn in red pen, not tattooed, drawn, like someone wanted it to be temporary but not forgettable. Another page. A room full of girls in identical dresses, some smiling, some crying, all barefoot. Each had a letter on their collar, KPACR. One girl was turned away from the viewer, her dress label blurred, and beneath that image, in Kim's handwriting. Lee performed. "You watched," he recorded. I sat back in the chair, my gloves suddenly feeling too tight. This wasn't just a sketchbook. This was testimony, the kind that doesn't make it to court because it wasn't spoken, the kind someone draws when there's no one left to trust. I flipped through the last pages. Each one became harder to look at. A girl standing in front of a mirror, arms outstretched, as red-gloved hands reached in from the sides of the frame. A series of small boxes, like film stills, showing a woman walking, turning, stopping, lying down. And then the final page, it was dated November 15th, 2018. The night she died. The sketch was of a bedroom, hers. The view was drawn from the foot of the bed, like the perspective of someone watching from the door. Kim was drawn lying on the bed, one hand outstretched toward the edge of the frame. Her eyes were closed, not peaceful, not asleep, just still. There was a shadow at the doorway. Not large, not masculine, not what I expected. The silhouette was short, curved at the shoulders, hair tied back. It was me. I dropped the sketchbook. For a second I thought the cold room had played a trick on me. Frostbite on my logic. I picked it back up, looked again. It was me. Not like me. Me. Same hair, same build, same chain on the belt loop I still wore. I flipped the sketchbook over. The back cover was blank, except for a smudge of graphite in the center, like someone had started to write and then changed their mind. No, wait, there was something there, barely visible, scratched in like it had been etched with a needle, not a pencil. I angled the book under the lamp and read the words slowly. You archived me once, don't file me again. This time, draw the ending. I pushed back from the table. Every piece of me wanted to log the sketchbook, box it, seal it under someone else's name, let it become another cold record. But I couldn't, because I knew something that wasn't on the intake form. In 2019, I was on temporary assignment in South LA. They had me audit a sealed batch of evidence from a closed wellness check that turned up nothing. Is the only item in the file? A spiral drawn in red pen on a paper napkin. Initials at the bottom corner, KP. I'd filed it, logged it, buried it, and now she was asking me to finish it. Chapter 5, Cycle 8, The Girl with No Autopsy. I'd been working medical record anomalies for 12 years when the Porter file landed on my desk. We call them ghost cases, files that were supposed to be resolved but left behind a strange trail, redactions that didn't follow protocol, red-matched chain of custody logs, coroner signatures without timestamps. Most of the time it's just administrative mess, overworked clerks, bad data entry, a sticky printer. But every once in a while you find a case where things aren't messy, they're too clean, too intentional. Kim Porter's death had already been ruled on paper, low-bar pneumonia, but no one ever asked why the full autopsy report was sealed under Tier 4 access. That level's reserved for high-level political deaths, intelligence assets, or anything tied to witness protection. She was a model, a mother, a public figure, not a threat to national security, and yet here I was, in a windowless subfloor of the Digital Forensics Review Center in Bethesda, pulling open a folder that shouldn't still exist. There was no body scan. That's the first thing that set off a bell in my head. We keep full body scans on every post-mortem exam since 2007. Even Jane does, but her file, labeled KP, Preliminary Death Report, had no DICOM images, no Lodox radiography, not even a dental record match confirmation, just a typed note. Full scan deferred, respiratory infection detected, field confirmation adequate. That doesn't happen. No scan means no official cause. A field confirmation is what they write when someone dies mid-transport during a disaster response, not in their own home. Not in a city like LA, with 2 coroners on call within 6 blocks. Second problem, her toxicology report. I opened the file and saw a list of standard line items, traces of antihistamines, low-level Tylenol, and something else. Zolamine D. Redacted dosage, redacted source. Zolamine D isn't a street drug. It's not even FDA approved. It's a compound used in military sedation trials, flagged as too potent for civilian clearance. It shuts down short-term memory encoding in high doses, leaves people docile, unable to recall what happened after administration. But it doesn't treat pneumonia, and it should not be found in a woman declared dead of natural respiratory illness. I cross-checked the internal system. Only 3 other civilian cases had ever flagged Zolamine D in post-mortem results, and 2 of them were sealed testimonies tied to Sean Combs' investigations, one in 2005, another in 2013. Both women had died of unrelated causes. Both files had pages missing. I ran a forensic comparison between those toxicology profiles and Kim's. They matched down to the metabolite curve. 3 women, same compound, same absence of respiratory inflammation, and none of them were ever listed in the National Registry as victims. That's when I knew something was wrong, not just clerical error wrong, but deliberately scrubbed, like someone wanted this death to blend into the background. I pulled up Kim's case number, 2018 KP43301. I tried to click the final tab, labeled Autopsy Addendum, Final Determination. The page was blank. I thought maybe it was a loading error, so I refreshed. Still blank. Then the tab disappeared, just vanished from the sidebar. In its place, a new one appeared. Cycle 8, playback ready. That wasn't a medical term, not even a legal one, but the system treated it like an active folder. I opened it. It wasn't a file, it was a video player, with no timestamp, no metadata. Just a black screen with one still frame, a sketch of Kim in bed, eyes open, looking directly forward. In the corner of the sketch, written in block letters. She rehearsed the ending. You're watching it now. I hit pause. Nothing happened. The controls were fake, decorative. The playback had already begun. I checked my audit trail. No logs, no record I had even accessed the file. My ID badge wasn't recorded on the server. The system had erased my presence. And then I saw it. My inbox pinged. New message. From unknown contact. No subject. No body. Is an attached voicemail file. I stared at it for a long time. When I finally played it, the voice was unmistakable. Soft. Precise. Familiar, even though we'd never met. It was Kim Porter. You filed me once, but you didn't watch it. Now it's your turn. I stopped breathing for a second, because I had filed something. Years ago. A handwritten witness statement, scribbled on the back of a napkin, no name, just a spiral symbol in red pen and a note. He rehearsed us until we forgot. It came in under a closed case, never followed up. I logged it, boxed it, sent it to Cold Archive 2B. That spiral was back now, in my peripheral vision, in my terminal's watermark. Every open window had a faint red coil in the corner, like the system had been marked. I tried to shut it all down. The files wouldn't close. The final message blinked on screen. A witness, T-Rex, not yet dead. That wasn't about her. It was about me. Chapter 6, the interview that didn't exist. The lock on the Tribeca office door barely worked anymore. The rust had bloomed out from the keyhole like a scar, and the bottom corner of the frame looked like it had been kicked in at least once. Still, I held my breath when I twisted the knob. Something about returning to an abandoned place always feels like trespassing, even if your name's still on the lease. My name's Jonah. Back in 2018, I was just a podcast producer with a half-broken Zoom mic and a dream of exposing something big. I was helping a small-time documentarian, Evan, work on an expose called Dead Light, Secrets of the Celebrity Circuit. It was supposed to be about exploitation, NDAs, hush money, nothing revolutionary. But then Kim Porter reached out. I didn't believe it at first. She sent an email through a burner account. Short, clipped. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She said, I have 1 hour. You can record, but no backups, no trailers, no sound bites. She picked the location, a short-term rental in Manhattan, and insisted on bringing her own microphone. We shot the interview 2 weeks before she died. Then Evan's office got raided by the IRS. Tax audit, they said. Random. They seized 5 drives, including our only master of the Kim footage. We were never given a receipt, no case number. The audit disappeared, and so did Evan. Last I heard, he was off-grid somewhere in Oregon, wouldn't take calls, stopped replying to Signal. I assumed the footage was gone. I tried to forget it. Until last week. Was cleaning out the office, my name still on the damn rental agreement after all, and found a cracked plastic bin behind the server rack. It was filled with old adapters, 2 mini discs, a reel of tape, and a thumb drive I didn't recognize. It was silver, unmarked, and wedged inside a coil of gaffer tape, like someone didn't want it to be found. Plugged into it was a label, printed on receipt paper. It's session 2. I didn't even breathe when I saw it, just pulled it out and left. I didn't open the drive in my apartment, too risky. I booked time in a friend's editing suite downtown and sat alone in a dark booth with a looping fan and a single desk lamp. The file was there. Modest format, no encryption. It loaded instantly. Kim was sitting in front of a wide curtain, her hair pinned back, no makeup, wearing a plain gray tee. She looked tired but alert, like someone who hadn't slept in days but couldn't afford to show it. She adjusted the mic herself. No slate, no countdown, just this. Okay, I'm ready. Her voice wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't calm either. It was clear, focused, every word like a needle. You asked what I've seen. That's not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out what was real. They had this thing. I don't know the full name. We called it the memory trap. A room, mirrors, soft floor, no edges, no windows. Girls were brought in, always alone, given something, told to relax. Sometimes music played, sometimes they had to perform, but the point wasn't the show. It was what they were told to say. She leaned forward. They'd hand you a script, describe it as what might have happened, and they'd tell you to say it like you remembered it. Say it again. Then again. Then faster. Then in second person. Then in third. And after a while, it didn't matter anymore. She paused, blinked, looked away for a second. Calmed of the girls, she bit her own tongue trying to stop herself. Another one kept saying, if I say it out loud, it becomes mine. That's what scared me the most. They told us it was therapy, rewriting trauma, but it wasn't ours. It was his story, his cycle. I didn't know what I was hearing. My palms had started to sweat. I hit pause, but the file kept playing. Im's voice slowed, almost like the playback had dropped frame rate, but the audio stayed in sync. Called it cycle rehearsal. Said it was art. Said the brain only needs 10 sessions to believe a lie if the mirrors are facing the right way. That if you give the memory a beginning, the ending will rewrite itself. My ears were ringing. Then she said, Debbie won't kill me while the cameras are rolling, but if this ever leaks, they'll call me pneumonia. That line hit me in the chest, because that's exactly what happened. She died 2 weeks after this footage. Cause of death, lobar pneumonia, natural, sudden, dismissed. I checked the file timecode. The total length was exactly 18 minutes 43 seconds, but the progress bar was already at 2011. That didn't make sense. Then the video glitched. Kim's face warped into a blur of static and color smear. The audio dropped out. White noise filled the room, like it had spilled in through the ventilation system. I sat frozen, afraid to move. Afraid if I blinked, I'd miss the moment the world turned inside out. Then the picture returned for one frame. Kim turned her head, not toward the camera, but through it. She looked directly at me. "You're watching, right?" she said. Her voice no longer came from the speakers. It came from inside the headphones, but deeper, like a whisper behind my ear. "Good, because this time it's your memory." Then the screen went black. The file closed itself, and the drive ejected. I tried to open it again. Nothing. The file was gone. But when I looked back at the editing monitor, there was a new note in the timeline window, a comment, as if someone had left a reminder. It read, "Final rehearsal complete. Witness absorption pending." I left everything there, walked into the cold New York air, and I swear, in every window I passed that night, I saw her reflection instead of mine. Red Room Session Playback. We're not supposed to call it the Red Room. Officially, the tag is Session Rehearsal Level 3, Mirror Protocol Footage. But that's just for the evidence log. Everyone in the surveillance recovery lab calls it what the girls called it. Red Room. Like a fairy tale gone wrong. Like the kind of room you think only exists in rumors or nightmares, until the footage lands in your queue and you realize it was always real, just hidden. I've been decoding encrypted drives for 4 years now. Most of it's boring. Security footage, mislabeled seizure evidence, body cam recoveries from melted housings. But this drive came in different. Hand-carried by a field agent in a locked briefcase, not even dropped in through the chain system. Labeled in red Sharpie across the front. Redirect 2018, Session KP3 Restricted Playback. My supervisor didn't say much when he passed it off, just that it had been recovered in the second sweep of the east tunnels at the Combs estate, buried under a floor panel behind a faux fuse box. "Whatever you see," he said, "don't scrub. Just log it, timestamp it, and don't pause." That last part stayed with me. The drive itself was ancient. Early SSD, barely powered on the first time. Took nearly 20 minutes to mount the volume. Inside were 14 folders, all tagged by session numbers, but the one they flagged, KP3, only contained a single video file. No metadata. No file format suffix, just a raw stream. When I clicked play, the lights in the lab dimmed for a split second. That's not supposed to happen. All our systems are on isolated voltage lines. The footage began without warning. No lead-in, no camera adjustment. Just the quiet hiss of frame drift on an old camera and a view of a square room with mirrored walls. There were no windows, no light fixtures I could see, but everything was evenly lit, like the light was coming from inside the walls. A girl walked in first, young, maybe 20. Her face was expressionless. She sat in the center of the room on a white plastic chair, her hands folded in her lap, like she'd been told to wait for her turn in a doctor's office. Then Kim entered. She moved slowly, deliberately. Her eyes didn't look at the camera, just the girl, then the chair beside her. She didn't sit. She started speaking. There was no audio, but the footage had subtitle overlay. Burned in like they were embedded during recording, the words appeared in pale gray font at the bottom of the frame. "I'm the girl who watched." That's all I did. I watched them come in, one by one, and I watched the lights change color when it was time to start. She wasn't crying, not at first, but she was acting like she had been taught to cry, like someone had instructed her, start with silence, then tremble, then break. Her voice must have been echoing in that room, but all I had were the captions. He told me I was the best one, because I never looked away. But I didn't know that watching was part of it. She took a step forward, The girl in the chair didn't move. They think when we forget it's over, but what if the memory lives in the camera? I sat forward. Because something in the frame shifted. The reflection of Kim in the mirror didn't match her movement. She was tilting her head left, but the mirror tilted right, and the camera stayed still. Suddenly behind her, a man walked into the frame. He was tall, wearing a red jacket. His head never entered the camera view. It was framed perfectly. His shoulders, his arms, the color red blinding in the grayscale tone of the rest of the shot. He placed something in Kim's hand. She held it, looked at it, then turned to the mirror. As if you're watching this, you're already part of it. Then the footage glitched. It didn't stutter or buffer. It reversed. Frame by frame, all the way back to the beginning. Kim walked backward out of the room. The girl stood up in reverse motion. The door closed in on itself. Then it looped forward again, but faster. Then again, and again. Then it froze on a single frame. The timestamp now read, Cycle 8, Jan 12, 2025, Session live. I blinked hard, rewound manually. It had previously said, Session 3, Nova 15, 2018, 2:04 and 33 seconds IM. Now it was 5 years in the future, a date that hadn't happened yet. A session number that didn't exist in the directory. The woman in the frozen frame looked up. It was Kim again. I'd older. Her hair was longer, her face fuller, the lines under her eyes deeper. This wasn't 2018 Kim. It was now. She raised her hand in the frame, slowly pointing forward, toward the lens. Then her lips moved. Again, no sound, but the subtitles returned. This isn't playback anymore. This is memory transfer. Then the screen pixelated just for 1 second and reassembled with new clarity. Kim's face had turned slightly. She was looking straight into the camera now. Not performing, not reenacting, just watching. And the final subtitle appeared, 1 word at a time. You were watching her. Now she's watching you. The footage stopped. No prompt, no file log, no system record that it had even played. But my screensaver wouldn't return. And the monitor behind me, turned off for hours, flickered to life with the same frozen frame. Kim, watching, still, Chapter 8. She wasn't the victim. She was the recording. The memo was stamped low priority, which usually means don't ask questions, just get it off the books. But it had a strange note underneath the clearance code, deemed historically irrelevant, archive compliance request, Tier 10 playback residue. That last part didn't sit right. In the indexing system, playback residue isn't an official term. It's something I'd only seen once, years ago, tied to an unfiled hearing that no one in our branch would talk about afterward. I'm an archivist, not a prosecutor, not an investigator. I move boxes from one corner of a federal building to another, digitize what I'm told to, and redact what the software flags. The records room doesn't even have windows. I prefer it that way. But the box that showed up on my docket that morning, it wasn't a handoff or an inventory request. It was delivered with no chain of custody trail, just sitting on my desk like it had always been there. The label read, Playback Residue, Kim Porter, Rehearsal Tier 10. No case number, no trial citation, just that. Inside the box were 3 things. First was the sketchbook. I recognized it immediately. Gray cloth binding, corner wear, spine repair from aging or overuse. I'd seen it before, years ago. It had been sealed, submitted, and marked for non-digital storage. That should have been the end of it. But when I flipped it open this time, the sketches were different. They'd changed. Not just different pages. The same drawings were altered. Subtle things. A figure standing closer to the edge of a sketch. A girl whose smile had vanished. One picture of a tunnel now had mirrors added, even though it hadn't before. Pages that used to end abruptly now had notes scribbled into the margins. One page in particular made my stomach tighten. It was a drawing of a courtroom, not grand like the kind in movies, just a simple federal chamber. Half full, the judge blurred as always. But in the front row sat a woman with her back turned, head bowed slightly. At the desk was me. Same glasses, same cropped hair, same silver ring I wear on my right hand, even though I keep telling myself I'll stop. She was sketching something on a form. Underneath, the drawing. The witness transfer completed. I shut the book. My palms had started sweating. Next was the USB drive. It was matte black, unbranded, except for the words written across it in silver marker. You left me on re. That phrase hit harder than it should have. I plugged it in, anyway. The file directory held a single folder. Psycho playback _KP _final. Inside was a log of transcribed voice notes. The dates were jumbled and the timestamps didn't follow linear order. Some were tagged 2018, others 2025. One entry repeated more than once. I didn't die when they said I did. I disappeared the moment no one listened. Forgetfulness is quieter than murder. He didn't need to silence me. He just had to make me forget myself. I closed the folder, ejected the drive. Third was the VHS tape. Heavy, old, no production label, just a handwritten sticker. I'm grateful for today's dialogue. We have one functioning VHS deck in the archive suite, mostly for converting ancient civil testimonies. I slotted it in and hit play. No color bars, no intro, no static. Just immediate flickers of light, a blur of courtroom shadows, people sitting without faces, a judge with no mouth, a girl in the witness box, but she wasn't speaking. She was drawing, a spiral, over and over again. Voices began murmuring, layered like whispers coming through from another room. Do you see her? Don't look too long. That's how she got stuck. She drew her way back in. Then one phrase came through, loud and clear. You didn't kill me, you forgot me, and that's worse. The video skipped, glitched, froze on a final frame. It was a close-up sketch. A room, this room, my desk, my coffee mug, the fan that never turns off, and the back of my head. Drawn in charcoal. I was already part of it. I opened the sketchbook again. The last page was one I hadn't seen before. It was blank when I flipped through earlier, but now it was filled in. Same courtroom, same judge, but in the middle of the gallery was Kim. Not speaking, not crying, just recording. Everyone else in the sketch had blurred faces, except one. Underneath the image, a note. She wasn't the victim, she was the memory. And now you're the playback. I looked up, expecting silence. That the monitor behind me had powered on without input. A line of text was typing itself across the screen. Session 11, memory transfer initiated. Viewer index 00001. I didn't close the sketchbook. I left it open because I wasn't filing evidence anymore. I was just recording what happens next.